All right, so continuing where we left off, kind of, sort of. This is a video we're going to go into, now that we're into the second phase of the Oscar season here. We're past pure speculation. Now we've got some solid early frontrunners here. We're going to go ahead and re-explore some of the top 8 categories. There's a few changes I've made since early October there, now that we're into kind of early-ish November, getting closer to middle of November. And I'll also look at the first predictions I have for the Screen Actors Guild Awards, so we'll go ahead and dive into that. So we'll start here in the top 8 categories. Try to get through these as quick as I can. Again, a couple changes, otherwise not way too much to write home about here. On the adapted screenplay side, I've still got Oppenheimer as a solid early frontrunner here, Killers of the Flower Moon in second, Poor Things in third, American Fiction in fourth, and Zone of Interest in fifth. I think All of Us Strangers, Spider-Man are still in the conversation here a little bit. Probably that's it. The Color Purple musicals, as we know, usually struggle in this category. On the original screenplay side, I'm going to stick with Past Lives for now, but this could really come down to a fight between Holdovers and potentially Barbie. I'm going to just say potentially right now, because I'm still, even though WGA has said, yep, we're going to rule it as an original screenplay, that doesn't mean the Oscars are going to stick with it. I would be more shocked than if it sticks in the original side, because, again, if something like Moonlight, which feels like a very original thing, and if there's that little technicality thing, I can see the Oscar voters, the Oscar, just Academy in general, the writers branch, saying, no, because it's based on characters created by Mattel, we're going to count this as adapted. So that Zone of Interest slot on the adapted side, I kind of feel like that one is the one to go, though, if Barbie were to come over. And again, I feel like it's an inevitable move. It's going to happen. Other people are a little more solid. They're a little more convinced that Barbie's going to stay in original. But I'll tell you what, though, if Barbie does stick in original, I think it's got a good shot to win the whole thing. It can go in there and win the category. Holdovers will have a lot to say about it, though. Past Lives could still beat it. So those are my top 3. Maestro and Anatomy of a Fall are my 4th and 5th place picks here. And after that, you've got a little bit of room here. We've got Saltburn could still play here. May December could score a nomination. Air, I don't think, is totally out of it yet. You could even argue something like Asteroid City is not completely out of the race yet. Let's go into the acting races now. On the supporting actress race first, we'll start here with Emily Blunt as my early front runner here. I feel like we've kind of talked about this a little bit in past videos, so I don't think we have to expand much on it beyond that. Jodie Foster, I've moved up to second for Naiad. Danielle Brooks in third for Color Purple. Now I've heard with what's the name of it? I was just thinking of it. The Eddie Murphy one from a few years ago. Dolomite Is My Name. Okay, I couldn't. For a while, I was like, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't get it. I had heard her name pronounced Devine Joy Randolph, but I've heard many more since then pronounce it Divine Joy Randolph, which makes more sense to me. But I'm an Oscar predictor. I'm not a judge, so I don't know, how you would go about that. But Divine Joy Randolph, again, that makes a little more sense to me, would be proper pronunciation. And I'm sure we'll hear both through the rest of the season here. I have her in 4th, and then Julianne Moore for May December in 5th. So I'm keeping Taraji P. Henson out just for the moment. Again, I've thrown her in and out through the year. That probably won't change. Penelope Cruz for Ferrari, I think, is still in the hunt here. Rosamund Pike for Saltburn is one I would keep an eye out for. Viola Davis for Air. Sandra Hüller for Zone of Interest, and one that feels like a dark horse right now, but some of the early screenings have supposedly begun for Napoleon, and the biggest word out of those early screenings is Vanessa Kirby could come in and wreck shop here and become a solid contender here for supporting actress. Don't forget that nomination she got a couple years ago for Pieces of a Woman would help her in this case. If there's an openish slot, if May December kind of falls off, or if Color Purple doesn't land exactly, or if Naiad fades away and there's an open spot here, that's exactly where Vanessa Kirby can strike, especially a film like Napoleon, which is going to be, in theaters around November, or around Thanksgiving time, rather, and then will go on streaming on Apple, presumably at some point in December, early January. So good time for that to strike there. Um, yeah, I think that's about it for supporting actress. On the supporting actor side, I did make one change here. We'll get to him last, but Robert Downey Jr. is still out front for Oppenheimer here. Ryan Gosling in second for Barbie. Mark Ruffalo in third for Poor Things. De Niro in fourth for Killers of the Flower Moon, but I probably should switch him in fifth in favor of Willem Dafoe. I'm pulling the trigger on Willem Dafoe. Coleman Domingo I did drop out here, and he could still come back in, but we'll just have to see. Dominic Sessa is one a name I'm hearing more and more. Of course, that's as The Holdovers has now come out, so it's in limited release, about to expand a little wider here. And he could still, if Holdover sticks around and maybe has a bigger play for not just getting the picture nomination, but potentially playing for director, screenplay feels good. If it can get like an editing nomination or something like that, if it starts to build that amount of steam, then Dominic Sessa could easily replace De Niro or maybe get in over Dafoe. Or if, heaven forbid, I know a lot of people are kind of rooting for Ryan Gosling here. If for whatever reason they just decide Barbie gets tech nominations, a picture nomination, and then maybe director and screenplay, and then leaves it out of the acting races, it could happen. Let's see, Sterling K. Brown, don't count him out. Charles Melton, if May December takes off, don't count that one out. And I think the last one I'll drop here is John Magaro, just in case Past Lives has something of a rebound here as we get closer to SAG and stuff like that. A movie like that, if SAG really likes that one and it gets it, say, Best Actress and Best Supporting Actor, then I think that those two candidates, I think, have a little life there, but we'll have to wait and see. But, yep, there you go. So I would say there's even a solid shot because, as we've pointed out here the last few years, either Supporting Actor or Supporting Actress gets two candidates from the same film in. I think Color Purple and Poor Things both have some legit claims, that they can do it. On the Best Actress side, I don't know if I'm alone in this still, but the Annette Bening narrative for Nyad, I feel like that narrative really, the film has, it's just playing on Netflix now for wide release on Netflix and stuff. So I haven't seen this one yet either, but I think that narrative has to start taking off here soon-ish. Like later this month, early next month at the very, very latest, if this is going to go anywhere. Because you could argue by this point in the season, 5 years ago, Glenn Close, her narrative had started to take off, and people started saying, well, the wife, it's in there for, to get a nomination and stuff. And a lot of people, I think, still have Annette Bening in, or she's a fringe nominee, like 6th or 7th. But yeah, I personally, I still think this narrative can totally take off. And especially if Jodie Foster can get in and support her, and this doesn't turn into what we saw last year, like, we've named out a few of them here, like Till, or Passing, or you can go back to the Timothée Chalamet one, A Beautiful Boy, The Good Nurse last year with Eddie Redmayne. A lot of these films that they have that one acting candidate, it looks like they're solid, and they don't make it, and the Oscars leave them out. So, that could happen with Annette Bening, but as long as Jodie Foster's solid, I think Annette will be fine. But that being said, Lily Gladstone, in the last video I talked about her possible narrative there a little bit. She is solid, man. If she's a very solid second place here. And again, that narrative really can start to kind of curve there once we get past Golden Globes and Critics' Choice, and right as SAG is voting is starting to happen. If that narrative takes off, that can overpower a lot of other candidates here in this category. Sandra Huller is my third place pick for Anatomy of a Fall. Another fantastic performance there. Emma Stone for Poor Things in fourth, and Carey Mulligan in fifth for Maestro. And speaking of Maestro, I have heard there's also some fair conversation going on that says, hey, what if Carey Mulligan wins and Bradley Cooper wins? First time in over 25 years we've had a film win Best Actor and Best Actress. It could happen. Carey has a little bit more of a tougher road to hoe, if that's still a phrase. That she's got a tougher job, I think, landing this win here in this category. She's got to get over Annette. She's got to get over Lily Gladstone, over Sandra Huller, over Emma Stone, and the people I don't even have in, like Fantasia Barrino, over Margot Robbie, over Kaylee Spaney, over Greta Lee, potentially Natalie Portman, and I think there was one other one. Ingenue Ellis, some people like for Origin still. Yeah, it's she's got quite a few people to jump in this race if she's gonna get the win here. But for a nomination, yeah, I think she's pretty solid right now. Best Actor, I've got one switch here as well. Bradley Cooper is still out front for me for Maestro, then Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, Leo for Killers of the Flower Moon in third, Jeffrey Wright in fourth for American Fiction, and I'm putting Paul Giamatti back in for Holdovers. I pulled Coleman Domingo, Rustin. We just talked about it. It feels like a film that if... I do have it in for Best Original Song right now, that's true. But if it, for whatever reason, can't get in there, which it there's a possibility it might not... if it, again, lands that kind of thing, Andrew Scott could also be, if that movie does not take off in screenplay or potentially in Best Picture even, I've heard some people say, for All of Us Strangers, that is also really going to hurt their chances, because those single nominee performances, unless you're like really, really the front runner, like a solid, like a Glenn Close, like for The Wife, for example, or... Julianne Moore for Still Alice, examples like that. Unless it's an example like that, unless it's a film like that and a performance like that, it's really tough sledding. It's really tough sledding to get that nomination as of late. So, yeah. So, yeah, Coleman, that being said, would probably be my sixth place. Andrew Scott in seventh for All of Us Strangers. I'll still say Barry Keoghan for Saltburn has a chance. We can't totally count out Joaquin, even though Napoleon, all the early buzz right now has been on Vanessa Kirby, and a little bit of buzz, too, on Ridley Scott, saying he actually does a really good job directing this one, and that he might actually, the narrative, I think, tried to take off a little bit in 2015 with him getting that first director win for The Martian, but he couldn't even get nominated that year. I don't know, it feels like that is going to be a really late push if they're going to try something like that again with him on this one. Otherwise, you got a couple outside contenders like Adam Driver for Ferrari or maybe Nicolas Cage for Dream Scenario if that one takes off, but we got a little ways to go before we know that. On the directing side, I don't think I have any changes here. It's Christopher Nolan out front for Oppenheimer, and I will say this just really quick. I think I've said it already this season, but Oppenheimer just feels like such a good job directorially for Christopher Nolan. It feels like it's a big opportunity for him. It feels like, yeah, he got that first nomination for Dunkirk, even though I think a lot of us knew it's going to be either Guillermo del Toro or, then we kind of stopped with that one for The Shape of Water. It's like everyone knew, Guillermo's got it this year, for the win at least. But that being said, I think Christopher Nolan is probably an easy lock for who could be one of the biggest favorites this year in their category. Even if Oppenheimer loses some steam in the Best Picture race and it does get that target on its back like we were talking about, I still think this one is a category he really, at this point, it seems like he might get into that phase where he can't lose. And now it's early, so I wouldn't totally count out Martin Scorsese yet. Yeah, and that's after that, it's like maybe Yorgos, and it's like if there's a passionate enough thing that happens with Poor Things, where that one does take off and kind of become a big passion vote like Everything Everywhere All at Once last year, I think those are the two that can take him down. Otherwise, it's the also ran competitors in this race. So yeah, so respectively, I do have Christopher Nolan, then Scorsese, then Lanthimos, and then Justine Triet in fourth for Anatomy of a Fall, and Greta Gerwig. I still have her in fifth for Barbie, but I'm really kind of floating around a few different ideas here. The first one being Bradley Cooper for Maestro. I think Maestro has started to really rise in my predictions here as far as placement in a lot of these categories, a couple of them at least. I feel like, obviously, I think Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Poor Things are all going to be pretty competitive for most nominations. If I had to, right now, if we had to just break it down to those three, I think Oppenheimer, a maximum, I've seen some people already doing some think pieces saying, hey, it can tie La La Land, Titanic, All About Eve, and get to 14. And right now I'm kind of struggling with that. It's like, okay, it can get picture. Okay, let's see if I can name everything here. Picture, director, actor, supporting actress, adapted screenplay, cinematography, editing, costume design, production design. That gets it to 10. Makeup would be 11. Sound would be 12. Visual effects, that's 13. And that's what I have it in for. Unless I missed one. Hold on. Let me see here. Did I say score yet? Score, visual effects, sound, makeup, production design, costume design, editing, cinematography. That would be 14. Okay, never mind. Yeah, so that would be 14 if it gets all of those. So that's that could be said. It could drop out of, costume design. Some people say it's not as strong. Maybe it doesn't make the list for visual effects, so that could be a possibility there. So yeah, it feels like that one would be the most nominated. Killers of the Flower Moon, though, picture, director, actor, actress, supporting actor, adapted screenplay, cinematography, editing. We're already up to 8 there. Costume design would be 9. Production design would be 10. Sound would be 11. Score would be 12. So that one's in that. That's where I have it right now. Is 12, but it could get let's see. It wouldn't be a player. Maybe the only other one I can maybe think of would be makeup. So that's maxing out at 13. Poor Things, though. Okay, let's talk that one. Picture, director, actress, 2 supporting actors. Adapted screenplay is 6. So you get 6 for all 3 of those. Cinematography would be 7. Editing would be 8. Costume and production design, again, that gets it to 10. Makeup and hairstyling gets it to 11. Visual effects, I have it in, that would be 12. And original score would be 13. So it would be just ahead of Killers of the Flower Moon by my estimates, at least. And the one I'm leaving it out of is one it could sneak into, and that's best sound. So that could tie Oppenheimer, or even take the lead over Oppenheimer if it gets, say, makeup and Oppenheimer misses that one, or if Oppenheimer misses visual effects or costume design or something. So Poor Things and Oppenheimer both are in that, up to 14 range there, with Killers of the Flower Moon up to 13. So, so that's where that's at. But Maestro, though, I have it right now in picture, actor, actress, original screenplay. I have it in for cinematography and editing. That would be 6. Makeup would be 7. Sound would be 8. And I think that's it. Yeah, because it's not going to be a player for original score. They're using Bernstein's stuff. It could break into one of the design categories. Probably costume design would be a little easier, I think, for that one. So it could get to 9. Otherwise, yeah, there's no supporting races. We don't think that it's going to play in. So, yeah, so that that's kind of a second tier. I feel like I've mentioned this before, but yeah, that one, Anatomy of a Fall and Barbie, feel like they'd be in that second tier as well, getting that 6, 7, 8, 9 nominations field. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. So yeah, so I have 3 top tiers and 2 second tier ones here. But Maestro, I think, is definitely in that second tier. So I would really look out for Bradley getting in for directing here, especially considering this is now his second effort as an actor turned director. And with Greta, her first one with Lady Bird getting in and stuff, there was a little bit of a, hey, let's get the women directors nominated kind of movement that happened back there in 2017. Didn't help her in 2019 with Little Women, which I argued was a better film. And having not seen Barbie yet, it's like, okay, we'll see here. But yeah, Bradley, I think, is really, really close. I might, maybe in the coming weeks here, I might switch him out for Greta. I feel like I got to keep Justine Triet in, though. If I'm going to drop her, I would have to put in either a Jonathan Glazer, or I'd have to pull the Wim Wenders card and say Wim Wenders gets in. But I've not heard, nobody else is talking Wim Wenders. So if he gets in and I start predicting him, okay, then I get some credit for that one. But yeah. Some people like Alexander Payne in this category for The Holdovers, and that, if it really, really takes off, that's got a good shot at landing it. Celine Song, I wouldn't totally count out yet for Past Lives, again, if that one rebounds. Again, a couple people like Ridley Scott here. Blitz Bazawul in case Color Purple takes off, and Cord Jefferson for American Fiction is also one I would not completely discount yet. So my lineup now for Best Picture, the 10 films I have in are Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Poor Things, Maestro, Color Purple, American Fiction, Barbie, Past Lives, Anatomy of a Fall, and I do have one final switch. I'm putting Holdovers in. I'm putting that one in. I know some people, one person I remember was very adamant that I needed to put Holdovers in, so there you go. Happy. So Spider-Man I have dropped out, and I feel like Spider-Man, even though I do think it has a decent shot at some of those tech categories in addition to animated feature, I don't know if it's going to have quite enough to pull for Best Picture. A screenplay nomination would really be key there, and I feel like it's kind of falling short right now. The Zone of Interest is also one to really keep an eye on. Napoleon, if it gets a few technical nominations, and if Vanessa Kirby arrives and really sets up shop there in supporting actress and starts getting some nods, that will help the movie's case for getting a picture nomination. Saltburn is not totally out of it yet, and even Air, All of Us Strangers, May December, I would say, not completely out of it yet. Even Ferrari, I would say, could break late for Neon. But again, for Neon, I feel like their big play this year should be Anatomy of a Fall. All right, so I think we're wrapped up there on the Oscars part of it. Let's get to SAG. Let's get to the SAG nominations, our first predictions here. And again, thank goodness everything with the strike now seems to be solved. Fran Drescher is telling everybody back to work, so here we go. Hopefully this is not going to be what's happening with the WGA this year, where they're saying, nope, we're just going to wait till 2024, like April, to have our awards. So they're now no longer an Oscar precursor for the Writers Guild. They are now an Oscars postcursor, which we really haven't seen that since some of the 80s, 90s BAFTA days. But yeah, I digress. Okay, let's go to supporting actress first here for SAG. I feel like you got to switch a couple things here and there in some of these categories just to keep it fun. Emily Blunt, though, I will still keep out front here for Oppenheimer, Jodie Foster in second for Nyad, Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers in third, Viola Davis I do have in for Air. She's really, really popular here at SAG. And she does have a few TV nominations to help her out, though, too, over the years. And then Julianne Moore for May December is my fifth pick. So you'll notice I'm keeping out both Danielle Brooks and Taraji P. Henson for Color Purple. I have a little theory here. Every year we have one or two contenders that SAG just does not touch. They just don't go for them. My early feeling is that could be the Color Purple this year. Especially since it hasn't screened yet. I haven't heard anything about whether it's still in post-production. I haven't heard anything about early screenings or anything just yet. So, yeah, Napoleon I've heard the early screenings of, but I've not heard anything on The Color Purple. Let's see. Ferrari, Penelope Cruz is not totally out of it yet. Even Rosamund Pike I would still give some credit to here for Saltburn being a possible contender there. I got the same five, though, in supporting actor. That's Robert Downey Jr., Ryan Gosling, Mark Ruffalo, Robert De Niro, and Willem Dafoe, so not much really to change there. And yeah, it's still Sterling K. Brown, Dominic Sessa, Charles Melton, maybe Coleman Domingo here, possibly, but again, I'm not really huge flyer on Color Purple here, and John Magaro for Past Lives would be the last one there. On the lead actress side, we'll still go Annette Bening here. We'll go Lily Gladstone. We'll go Emma Stone. Margot Robbie, though, I do have predicted to get in here for Barbie. And then Carey Mulligan in fifth for Maestro. So I'm leaving out Sandra Huller. Don't forget, up until very recently here, a lot of the international films really struggled at SAG. You know, that's one place, if memory serves, Isabelle Huppert did not get in for Elle the year she got nominated, I believe. Antonio Banderas missed for Pain and Glory. Parasite was really the big breakthrough, and that got in for Ensemble and then later won. You know, that was kind of our big breakthrough there. But Roma, as I recall, missed out at SAG so the year before that. So, yeah, as I recall. I don't think Yalitza got in that year. I don't think so, at least. Somebody can point it out to me if I'm dead wrong, but yeah. That does. I'm also counting out Fantasia here. Greta Lee, I think, would be a little bit more of a better contender here ahead of Sandra Huller. Natalie Portman, I think, is not one to totally skip out on here. She could land a nomination. And Kaylee Spaney, because Priscilla is one of these that's coming out a little earlier. As we know, SAG likes their screeners and they like early stuff. So that's an earlier one is Priscilla. And then for Best Actor, I've got Bradley Cooper out front for Maestro here, then Cillian Murphy, then Leo DiCaprio. I do have Coleman Domingo in for Rustin here, though. Again, that's a streamer. That's a Netflix film. They love their Netflix, especially since the SAG Awards are going to be on Netflix for at least the next couple years. And Paul Giamatti I have in for The Holdovers. So American Fiction is another one that I have that, even though it's premiered early and been at Toronto and stuff, being that a later December release, I think it's going to miss out there. Even though Poor Things is a December release as well, but that's an earlier December release. And it's been out at Venice and at Telluride, and they've had multiple screenings across LA and New York Film Festival, so that one has been around quite a bit. American Fiction, a little less so. Let's see, Barry Keoghan and Joaquin Phoenix, Andrew Scott, not Adam Scott, sorry. Usual competitors there. Let's go film ensemble here. So my 5 that I have getting in for ensemble, Oppenheimer first. I do feel like, even though I know a lot of people say, well, usually SAG likes their more diverse casts here. Yeah, it turns out like the only diverse cast I have getting nominated this year so far is Killers of the Flower Moon, with a lot of the American Indian cast members there. But it's like, otherwise, Oppenheimer, mostly white. Killers of the Flower Moon, yeah, a little diversity, but still, a lot of white people in there. Barbie, I have in third. Told you early on in the season, I'm putting Barbie in, mostly white, but with some diversity in there. Poor Things, mostly white. They're in fourth. My 5th place pick, I'm going off the board here a little bit. I'm going Anatomy of a Fall. Drop the mic. I feel like I have to pick an outside contender here for 5th place. Again, I'm not believing in Color Purple here. I feel like that December thing is going to throw them. Same with American Fiction. After that, it's like, I don't believe in any of the other big contenders here. Like Holdovers, very small ensemble. Those really struggle. And usually they just do not come through. Dumb Money was an early release, but it doesn't feel like a legitimate contender. That's got a really big ensemble that, other years I think would be, something of a contender, but not this time. Maestro feels like it'll be a really small ensemble, so they'll probably not pick that one if Mulligan and Cooper both get in. And again, that's another December release, but that one is Netflix, and it also has been showing at a lot of the festivals, so I think that one will be safe. Past Lives, again, feels like it'll be a very, very small ensemble. Rustin has a bigger ensemble, and it is Netflix, but some of these films from Netflix that are like that, like Dolomite Is My Name, I thought that year would do well at SAG. It didn't. You could even argue something like The Harder They Fall, which was a great Netflix film that nobody saw a few years ago. I think it was the same year as Power of the Dog. That one totally missed at SAG, as I recall, unless it got one of the stunt ensembles or something. And we're not talking stunt ensembles here today at SAG. Even something like Asteroid City, that feels like so long ago, even though that's got a huge, huge ensemble, it just doesn't feel like it's in the hunt here. But then you got something like Anatomy of a Fall, earlier release. It's not a streamer, but it's Neon. What did Neon do a few years ago with Parasite? Ensemble win. I think Anatomy of a Fall, it might not win the category, but it can definitely get a nomination. And it's another thing, too, when you watch the movie, like I did earlier this week, the cast is introduced. It's not a weird cast listing, because remember, the cast listing does have a big part with who gets included in the ensemble. Anatomy of a Fall would have a decent-sized ensemble. And it's not just Sandra Hüller doing a good job. Like I mentioned, The Son in the last video. The Son is phenomenal. A lot of those other supporting characters, one of the lawyer characters has a pretty sizable role. There's this court assistant, judge assistant kind of gal that does have a bigger role toward the second and third act, without giving way too much away on that one. So it's like, yeah, there's a really, really... It feels out of left field, feels like a weird pick, but you know what? SAG and Globes, usually, they throw a couple really weird things in there, and it could happen. That being said, though, if Sandra Hüller gets in individually in Best Actress, though, I don't think it gets in for ensemble. Then I think it's a harder thing. But I'm just looking at the thing here. If we take out Color Purple and American Fiction because of their late release dates, and you look at the rest of the field, I really struggle. I really struggle with, okay, this one feels like a good fit, or this one feels like a big enough ensemble that they're going to include it. It's just, usually with SAG, they like, Killers of the Flower Moon will have a pretty decent cast. Oppenheimer will have a pretty decent sized cast included in the ensemble. Barbie should have a pretty decent sized cast. Poor Things, yeah, that one might have a little bit of a smaller ensemble, but most of them are going to be already nominated. So once in a while, yeah, we do get those. Those do happen. But, yeah, plus that one is such a bigger Best Picture player anyways that it would feel like a weird one to leave out of ensemble. But, and without looking through the history as we usually do at this point of like some of the other snubs, I don't know. I feel like with this case, yeah, I feel like the 5 I've got are solid enough. Even with that Anatomy of a Fall pick in there, yeah, I feel like I had to go somewhere a little different for that one. So, yeah. All right, I think that's all I got for now. So we will be back here. Not sure when. Probably in the next few weeks. We'll re-explore the Golden Globe stuff. We might get into a couple other things here and there as they happen, but still, good on one more time. Good on to the studios and to SAG-AFTRA for coming to a deal. Don't forget, I know a lot of people are praising SAG-AFTRA right now, but it's like the studios also had to cave on a lot of things in order for this deal to happen. So, yeah, and I've read a couple details here and there, and it sounds like the AI stuff, which I'm not for AI in like virtually any form. Outside of like, I've heard a couple people argue, well, if you use AI for like military training or something, it's better than using real targets or fake targets and whatever. It's like, okay, you can there's and with medical technology and stuff, okay, AI where you can use it there, the more like obvious stuff, sure. But as far as like in acting and stuff, it's like, oh, I don't know. And in some of this other stuff that would involve the entertainment industry and many other things, by the way. No, I'm not a huge believer in AI, so I'm glad that they solved a lot of that stuff, and the rest of it really sounds like money stuff. Which, hey, most of the money deals they're talking about is money I'll probably never see in my life, but yeah. All right, but hopefully everybody gets back to work out there in good old Hollywood land, and we'll have a hopefully halfway solid 2024 slate at the end of the day, and. The 2023 leftovers that couldn't quite come out this year that did pull back because of the strike, we'll see them in 2024. And otherwise we'll keep going here with stuff here later this month.